Hello all, and welcome back to a new episode of Movies in Us, a weekly gathering place filled with conversations about movies, stories, and connection. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And today we are going to be doing one of my personal favorite episodes that we do every year. This is a Movies in Us tradition and a great way for us to kick off the new year. I believe this will be our very first episode that will be released in 2025. And we're going to start off the year by looking back on the year of 2024. And we're making some lists today, Sarah. What are we doing today?
We are making our list. This is our top 10 movies watched in 2024. So this is just movies that we watched in the year that we loved. They didn't have to be released in 2024. And we come together, we share our top 10. So we're going to start with number 10, go all the way to number 1. Then we'll share a few honorable mentions. And then at the end, we have one of our favorite moments because we got to roast somebody, and we share the worst film that we watched in 2024, which is always kind of hilarious.
Yeah. And our reasonings for it is always like wildly across the board too. So that's always good fun. Yeah. You know, some people make New Year's resolutions, some people set intentions, and what we do is we like to celebrate all of the great things and some of the worst things we watched from the previous year as a way for us to really get excited about the year to come and all of the great pieces of storytelling and not so great pieces of storytelling that we will get to experience the full spectrum of in 2025. So this is always a really fun episode and really great to see what collection of films that you've come up with on your list as well. I always find that our list, our crop of 10 feel like such a little collection that I feel like I'm putting into my little box and putting them into an order, and you're putting them into your little box. And so it's always fun to see what we've collected as some of our personal favorites out of the entire year. Before we dive into our lists and go from 10 to 1, then honorable mentions, then worst film, any thoughts, overall reflections, any noticeable patterns that you've seen as you've been making your list this year?
Well, Jen, it wouldn't be a top 10 list of mine without chaos and overthinking. And that is exactly what has happened. I'm solid on my list, but I also am looking at like my 11 through 20, and they would also be a great top 10 list.
Yeah.
So I'm spoiled for choice this year. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those years that I'm wondering if a year from now, I'm going to look back at that list and go, Sarah, what?
Yep.
Why did you choose this? So we'll see in a year if I'm still happy with this list. But right now, I think this is what we're going with.
Well, sometimes occasionally, randomly, when we're bored and inspiration strikes, we'll go back and look at the lists that we've created from our previous years. And it's always really fun to be like, you know, some of these solid, like, incredible choices. And there's always a few on there where you're like, well, at the time, that was the pick that I made of my past self. Really, that was captivating. So yeah, these are always such little time capsules. So for today, here at the beginning of January of 2025, this is the list. It can change. You can revise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. We'll do some revisionist history at some point in time.
Roast our own past lists.
Honestly, I'm not mad at that idea because I deserve to be roasted, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's some fascinating picks on there for mine as well. I found that my list this year changed the most as far as ordering. Like, I had my list of 10 that I really was like, this is what I want. But I had them in different combinations of orders. And I pulled a U and I was changing them like literally an hour or two ago. So here we are. This is the final list as of 4:15 p.m. Eastern time as we're recording this.
I love it. I love that my chaos has rubbed off on you.
Yeah, it is.
I'm so pleased. I'm also sorry, but welcome to my chaotic world.
Well, it's just so hard because so many of these films are so different from each other. Like how I just didn't know. I was like, well, this feels like it should be above this one, I guess. For now? Yeah, that seems right. Yeah, it's fun. It's good fun.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, I don't know, man. It's hard to know where to put something on the list, and it changes from day to day. Yep. So like you said, this is the list as of this time period of recording. Tomorrow it might be different, but we didn't record tomorrow. We're recording right now. Yep. So this is the list.
Yep. Indeed. All right. Well, let's dive right in, shall we? We're going to start off with our number 10. Sarah, what is your number 10 pick for your list this year of 2024? I'm so intrigued.
Okay, so this is probably one of my more controversial picks. I would imagine that a lot of people who saw this movie would be like, ugh, why is this on your top 10?
Oh, wow.
But
it is contentious. This is a great start.
Right? I thought we'd start with some drama. It's called Handling the Undead. And it's mislabeled. It's labeled as a horror movie. It is not a horror movie. It is about zombies, but it really is just a meditation on grief. And it's a total vibe movie. And so it's very quiet. The camera is very still. There's not a lot of dialogue. And you're just walking through this moment with these different families as they're processing a loved one coming back from the dead. And if you're going into this movie looking for like a zombie horror movie, you're going to be disappointed and you're going to hate this. If you're looking for just like hanging out with these characters as they're processing through grief, then this is a good movie for you. And there's some choices that this film makes, particularly in the ending, that are just really, really powerful and I thought were really interesting. So this film totally worked for me. The vibe was just right. Like I started the movie and I was like, yes, I'm here for this. And I had a great time. So Handling the Undead, it's not for everybody, but I really enjoyed it.
It is for Sarah Callan, and that's all that matters. Here on Movies and House. Wow, that's awesome. What a great pick. I have not seen this movie yet, but sounds fascinating and a fun kind of twist or a subversion of expectation of like a typical zombie apocalyptic type of film to explore themes about grief and things like that. That's awesome.
Yep.
My number 10 pick, we're starting off the year real strong here, is also about grief. It's called His Three Daughters. It's a Netflix film.
Yes.
Did you get a chance to watch this?
Yes, this film is so good.
It is.
Yes, I'm so glad that it's on your list.
Yes, it's directed by Azazel Jacob, starring Carrie Coon, Natasha Lyonne, and Elizabeth Olsen. Incredibly acting forward type of film. Like these performances are incredible, and the film really rides on these actresses doing their thing. It's about their father reaching the end of life, so there's a lot that's explored around hospice care and kind of this logistical balance between the logistics and the emotions of having to deal with end of life phases with a family member. There's a lot around sibling and family dynamics that's explored here. As someone who's experienced something similar in this and getting to observe family members kind of navigate through a period of time like this, I thought this film did such an incredible job bringing a lot of realism, but also these moments of levity that kind of hit you over the head in the most unexpected moments, but are so true to life. And so this is an exhausting watch, PSA. Just put that out there. It's not a fun film, but I think it's an important one and does an incredible job exploring the many nuances of caring for a loved one as they are nearing the ending stages of their life and everything that comes out in us as human beings as we navigate some of those phases. So the ending is, I think, really beautiful and kind of marries together a lot of complex emotions together all at once. So I loved this film.
Oh, it's so good. I loved this one too. It's actually in my honorable mentions. Yay! So I'm really glad that you included it on your list. But perfect. I loved that this film uses silence so well. And it's such a quiet film a lot of the time. And especially when the film talks about, death as absence. And I think that absence of sound was really important. And then the use of music when it does come in is just so powerful. And the way that it's shot is great. And the use of a single location is brilliant. Is just such a well done film. Mm-hmm. So good.
Yep. Netflix using its powers for good. We love it.
It is. We love to see it.
Perfect. Okay. What is your number 9 pick?
My number 9 pick is a movie that we both loved, which is Monkey Man. This movie, it just freaking rocks. Like, it's so good. I'm so glad that I was able to go and see this in the theaters because it's so, the action is incredible, the way that it's directed is incredible, and it's so much more than the Indian version of John Wick, but the way that it infuses lore and history and culture into this action thriller is just incredible. So it's a great directorial debut from Dev Patel, and he absolutely kills it in the leading role as well. So I loved this movie. I just can't say enough good things about it. So it had to be on my top 10 list.
This is such a great pick. Such an important film, too. Evidence that we can have great storytelling, great character development, and great action all at once with a really fresh take on a genre that's been done a gajillion times, and yet there's something fresh and new that Dev Patel brings to this. So, man, he is one to watch. I'm so excited to see what he does next.
Oh, yes, me too.
Oh, good. I love that this is on your list.
Yeah, so let's just give him more money and just say, Dev, just make what you want. Take as much time as you need. Here's some cash. Mm-hmm. Go make something else that's great.
Yep. So good. Okay, my number 9 pick is also a film that we both loved, directed by James Samuel. It's The Book of Clarence.
Yes.
Starring Lakeith Stanfield, R.J. Cyler, honestly, a gajillion other people. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is also making an appearance in this. It's star-studded. Man, we love what James Samuel does. The score is incredible. I think it's really fascinating seeing artists go from being musical artists into the filmmaking world and vice versa. And these kind of mixing of backgrounds together, I think, is really shining through in a lot of his films. This is kind of this really great reimagining of the biblical epic as a genre stereotype. James Samuel knows his film history as well, which is incredible to see. This film is irreverent with a purpose, and it's able to shake our existing narratives about some of these biblical stories that have been told by those that are in power. And to see this take on it is really incredible. There's so much relevancy to race relations in the U.S. today that are being told through this like ancient story. And so, man, this film is like just opened my mind in so many ways and really, really fresh. So The Book of Clarence, number 9.
It's such a good movie. It's funny and it's moving and the action is great and you want to root for these characters, and Lakeith Stanfield is great as always. Oh, yes. James Samuel is another one where I just want to be like, can we just give you a stack of cash and just go make something awesome? Because man, with The Book of Clarence and The Harder They Fall are both such incredible films, and they're fun as a genre movie and they're effective as a genre movie, but they also are so much more than that. And his ability to do those things and his musicality and all of these different characteristics that he has helps to make these movies as great as they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So true. So true. The Harder They Fall, I think, was like number 4 on my list that year. And that is one I would like to revise. I think it needs to be higher. It's my personal mission to evangelize The Harder They Fall with everyone I know the years since. So that's when we do our revisionist history episode for our top 10 list.
Honestly, though, I don't remember where that was on my list, but it should be higher. You're right. So maybe we'll have to go back and right some of these wrongs from our past selves.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating, though, to see that our number 9 picks are from directors that are very much in the beginning parts of their career and are just doing such fresh storytelling and new takes on genres and stereotypes that are so well ingrained and definitely ones to follow. So, Dev Patel and James Samuel, I can't wait to see what you make next.
Oh, yes. So excited.
Okay. Number 8. What is your number 8 pick, Sarah?
My number 8 is The Color Purple.
Tell me more.
Yeah, I loved how this film was able to take this musical and bring it to the screen in a way that just felt right. Sometimes you watch a musical and it doesn't make sense. I'm looking at you, Amelia Perez, but the color purple just perfectly integrates the musicality into everything that they're doing. And I also I loved that this film just centers and highlights Black joy. I feel like a lot of the films that we have that center around Black people center on like suffering and tragedy or slavery or things like that, where they have to where it's just hard and it feels kind of like a slog sometimes. But the color purple, they experience so much tragedy. And yet it's not about that. It is about their joy and joy as resistance. And I thought that was just such a powerful theme and such an important thing to highlight. Plus, all the actors are incredible in this. The songs are great. The staging, the choreography, everything. The set designs are just absolutely beautiful. So I think from like top to bottom, this was just so well made, and it has such an important message to share. So yeah, The Color Purple is my number 8.
This was an incredible film and such a great pick, and so fit for your love for musicals and being able to channel the way that music can heighten emotion. I think is something that particularly captivated you. And it's awesome because we've talked about other musicals since, and I've heard you reference back to this film and the way that this film is able to do that so many times. And so it's amazing to see this entry into taking this format, this medium, and really aligning it with a storytelling purpose that is so big and so meaningful. So this is such a great pick, a great film.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good. Loved it. Everybody should go watch The Color Purple.
Yes. My number 8 pick is Lucky Grandma. So this film is about a Chinese chain-smoking grandma that goes all in at the casino and finds herself on the wrong side of luck. This is directed by Sassy Seeley, and it's starring Tsai Chin, who plays the grandma. And it's incredible. This is Sassy Seeley's directorial debut. This film is incredibly punchy and clever. It's really funny, but I also loved how much there was a lot of meaning in some of the small details and certain shots throughout the film that serve to be this kind of silver thread throughout, tell a full story that support the larger themes. And it's really grounded in some of these cultural rituals and symbols that are important in Chinese culture, but they're used to tell a story that support the larger arc of the character throughout. And so while there's really fun sequences and action bits, there's also this like underlying story and meaning and purpose that I think is like really like subtly woven in together. This is also a film about fate, luck, working your lifetime so hard to build something and finding yourself in your life wondering like what was it all for, and kind of redefining what life looks like and what legacy looks like for you. And so it's a really fun film. I found it to be such a great time, and I'm really excited to see what Sassy Seeley decides to do next, because I think her style and her flair is incredibly clever. So very intrigued to see what she does next, and this is a great first entry.
I had not heard of this film, but I have definitely just added it to my watch list because you had me with an ornery chain-smoking Chinese grandma.
Yes.
I need nothing else. That sounds incredible. I want to hang out with this woman. I want to see what she's going to do.
You're going to love
this
her.
Sounds amazing. I'm so excited to watch this.
You're going to have such a great time. It's a really fun watch too, which I think is really fun and easy to recommend. It's great fun.
Amazing. Good find.
Yeah. All right. Number 7. What is your number 7 pick, Sarah?
My number 7 is All We Imagine as Light.
Mm-hmm.
This is a film. It takes place in Mumbai, and it kind of follows 3 women just as they are living in the city. And it's really a slice of life film. Just kind of watching them go about their days and as they're struggling with whatever they're struggling with. And I really loved being taken into Mumbai and seeing the city without like the Hollywood glitz on it. And you get to see what living there and what life feels like from the residents' perspective. And then each of these 3 women, they are grappling with a society that defines them in their relation to a man. And I thought that that was just really interesting to see how each one of them is defined by their relationships and how each one is kind of fighting against that in certain ways or going along with it in certain ways. And so it was just a really interesting way to think about how we interact with one another and how society sees women just in general, in addition to it just being a really interesting story and you want to hang out with these characters. So yeah, I had a great time with All We Imagine Is Light, and I've heard like some other people talking about really enjoying it as well, so I hope that this is one that will get more attention.
I have not heard of this film nor seen it yet, so I love that you got a chance to watch this and really enjoyed it. I think you had me at it's a portrayal without the Hollywood glitz, and I'm like, I am bought in on that, yes. But being able to really live life and do life with these women sounds like an incredible experience, and just being able to walk in their shoes for a 2-3 hour experience and really understand what they're navigating, what their struggles are, what they're facing, what they're hoping for sounds like such a beautiful film. So adding to the watch list. Mm-hmm. Love it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out.
So good. So good. Okay, my number 7 pick is Poor Things, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, starring Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, Willem Dafoe, a bunch of other folks. When I watched Poor Things earlier this year, this was way back in the beginning of the year, I had a feeling it'd be somewhere on my list. I wasn't sure where it would land, but I was like, this film, I just never seen anything like it. You know, there's so many brain-bending concepts to chew on, and the premise and the way that it's portrayed is so special and so unique. Like this concept can only come from a man's brain, like Yorgos Lanthimos' brain. And so I found the themes and ideas that it's exploring around female liberation to be really fascinating, and the conversations it's been able to spark amongst people in my life, on the internet, some of the ethics in this film that people fall kind of on different sides of on the spectrum on as how they feel about is really fascinating. So there's a lot to think about with this film, and I found myself chewing on it for a long time. And then a film that's able to stimulate so many thought trains all at once is really fascinating. The visuals, the cinematography is incredible. The costume design is incredible. But man, the premise and the concepts in this film are a lot to think about, and really will open your mind up to many different ideas that and in new ways. So I love to celebrate a film that is able to do that. I think it's hard to do, and Poor Things was able to do that for me.
Yes. This is such a good movie. Just from top to bottom, this thing is just incredible. And Yorgos has been able to create something truly unique. And I'm still absolutely blown away by it. You know, I watched it again a few months ago, and it's still great upon rewatch, and there's still new things to discover and find and new ideas to think about after. So it's definitely one that rewards multiple watches. Mm-hmm. This is such a great choice.
Yeah. I remember walking in the theater being like, I need several hours to sit with my thoughts.
Yes.
And let them run.
Absolutely.
Incredible. Yeah. Okay. Number 6. We're getting close to the halfway point. Honestly, I was thinking just a few minutes ago, the crop of films that we have so far are incredible. Like, we could shut this thing down, go home today, and I'd be so happy with the movies that we've been listing. And we still got nearly more than half our list left to go. So, man, what a great collection of movies. Okay, number 6. What is your choice?
Mine is Society of the Snow.
I had a feeling it should be somewhere on the list for you.
Yes. Yep. This is based on the true story of when a rugby team crashed into the Andes and they were stranded there. And this is an absolutely beautiful film because, I mean, you're in the middle of the Andes. Like, wow, stunning shots all throughout. And also terrifying at the same time because these characters are stuck and there's no way for them to escape. And it's terrifying. It's beautiful. It is one of the more harrowing, intense films that I watched in 2024. Like, there were times when I was watching this that I had to remind myself to breathe because I was so tense at what I was seeing on the screen. And it's just, it's just about these people's will to survive, and the way that the film really humanizes these characters and handles this story with respect, I also really appreciated. So it's a difficult film to watch, but it's a very, very well-made film, and it's one that has stuck with me throughout the year.
Yes, I haven't gotten a chance to watch this yet, but I'm so intrigued because I've heard you rave about this film several times this year, and I'm so intrigued. And to this premise, I think is incredible, but it sounds like the way that it's shot and executed on is really brings us to life. So I'm so curious about this, and I've seen a lot of people really rave about this. So very intrigued by this one. I was thinking this would be somewhere on your list, just a matter of where.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So good. Okay, my number 6 pick is American Gangster. So this is directed by Ridley Scott, starring Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe. And I watched this film after we watched Gladiator 2 from this year. And I was like, you know what? I've been fascinated by Ridley Scott in general as a filmmaker. And obviously I needed more Denzel in my life after watching Gladiator 2. And so I fired up American Gangster. It's been on my watch list for many, many years. I just hadn't gotten around to yet. And this seemed the right time to do a Ridley and Denzel pairing. So I loved this film. I mean, I'm no surprise to anybody that listens to the pod. I love gangster mafia films. And this film is such a play and a subversion of so much of what we've seen in gangster stereotypes in films. It obviously has a lot of the same tropes and the same pillars, but this film really explores like the state of America at the time. There's a lot of sequences that are focused on race relations, the Vietnam War, these concepts of systems of justice and survival. And what does that look like in America at that time, in that time period? What is the nature of corruption? And I love this film is unafraid to ensure that we don't forget the costs of all of the actions of our characters, both the ones that are the typical heroes and those that are sometimes revered as the heroes in films. And I thought that was such a fascinating choice. There's so much meat in this film that I think surprised me. I expected to go in for it to be a really great gangster film, and I left with a lot more to think about thematically. And so the way that Ridley Scott obviously is an image maker, but also has meditated on a lot of these ideas around the systems and people groups in America at the time and how they interact and collide with each other is really fascinating. So yeah, American Gangster was an unexpected surprise of a film for me. A lot of meat here.
This is such a good pick. And I love that you watched this after Gladiator 2. What a different experience that is.
The thing in common is Denzel is firing on all cylinders. Oh my gosh. I needed more Denzel in my life, and I got it. Yeah. It's great.
He is phenomenal in that film. Oh my gosh.
He's so good. The charisma is incredible.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it'll cut to shots of like some of the addicts that he's selling to, that his business is profiting off of. And you're like, oh crap. Like, I was so drawn into your presence. And now I have to face the fact that like, there's consequences to some of the things you're doing. But like, you're a family man. You're Denzel. You smile and I melt. Like, my God.
It's true.
Yeah. So it's a great role for him specifically because it's constantly playing with our emotions, which is really fun.
Yep. Yeah. That's such a good movie. It's been quite a few years since I watched that, so it might be time for a rewatch.
Is it? It's great. All right. We're getting down to the top 5. So, Sarah, what is your number 5 pick?
My number 5 is The Great Lillian Hall. This stars Jessica Lange and Kathy Bates, and they both give absolutely phenomenal performances. They're incredible actresses, and you really see that in this film. Lillian Hall, which is Jessica Lange's character, is a Broadway actress, and she's getting older, and the film just focuses on her as she is contemplating her life and what is her legacy, and reflecting on her successes and mistakes. And so it's this combination of the theater, which I just love, and this like meditative, I don't know, just thinking about your legacy in the past and all of that rolled up into great performances, really intriguing writing. Like, this is just one that absolutely captivated me, and I couldn't stop thinking about it afterwards. So great Lillian Hall. It's not for everybody, but I really, really loved it.
That's for you. It's got you
it
written all me. Over it. We just reviewed Nosferatu 24, Robert Eggers edition with Britt, and she's, was gushing about how this was made for her, and I feel like this is your Nosferatu, Sarah.
Honestly, though, like, there's so much about this that I'm like, yep, that just works for me.
Yep. So good. So good. I had feelings to be somewhere on your list. Mm-hmm. I'd see it at number 5. That's awesome. Yep. My number 5 choice is a film that we reviewed this year, Anatomy of a Fall, directed by Justin Triet. Man, I mean, this film is about a French woman who is a suspect in her husband's murder. And I am just so impressed by the screenplay construction. We have seen a gajillion legal dramas in Hollywood and in cinema. And the way that this script perfectly constructs all of these details and witnesses and descriptions throughout the trial and leaves us perfectly ambiguous at the end is just incredible. And the way that at every moment we begin to buy into one side or the other. She's guilty. Oh, but then somebody else testifies and maybe she's not. And the way that the film is able to perfectly cast doubt on both sides of the testimonies is just perfectly done. And I think it's a premise and a concept that's really hard to do, and somehow they've been able to execute it in an incredible way. There's a lot in here around like portrayals around narrative and narrative construction in the legal stage, which I think is really great. So I just love the screenplay of this film. I think it is like one of the masterpieces of screenplay writing that I've seen in a long time. And so this had to be on my list. So it's on number 5 for me.
I knew this would be on your list.
Yeah.
Yes. It is so good. This is such a captivating film. And I love that there's so many legal films and shows out there, and Anatomy of a Fall manages to do something different within this genre. And it's just so interesting to watch. Like, you are glued to the screen the entire time, just wondering, did she actually do it? Mm-hmm. Such a great pick. This is such a good film that everybody should watch.
Yeah, so good. So good. And I was so pleased to see it get nominated for a bunch of things in the 2024 Oscars earlier this year. So really great to see this movie get some flowers. Not enough, but I'm satisfied enough. It's
definitely not
better
enough,
than previous.
Yeah.
Decades.
We're slowly getting better.
Yeah. It's number 5 on my list, which is all given its flowers and its spotlight that it deserves. Okay. Mm-hmm. Number 4. What's your number 4 pick?
My number 4 pick is The Substance.
Ooh. Yes.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
This is quite a movie.
She's speechless, everybody.
Honestly,
how do you even describe this movie? Yeah. People struggle to figure out how to describe this movie.
What I love about this movie and why it's so high up on my list is that it's a horror film, and it's specifically a body horror film. So I'm very sorry, Jen, for when we have to review this. But it uses that horror and it uses those images so strategically to make a point. And so it's not wasted. It's not just there to be scary or for shock value. I think that there is one scene in particular that is way too long, and I needed it to be much shorter than it is. But other than that one scene, I think that everything was just so well done and reinforces the point and is really an indictment on the unrealistic beauty standards for women and how, women often feel forced to take extreme measures to stay beautiful or young. And sometimes those are horrifying steps. So it just makes sense that this film that's commenting on these things would be a horror film. And so I love that. It's so well done. The sets are beautiful. Demi Moore gives a fantastic performance. The score is appropriately unhinged. Like, this film is just so well made. It swings for the fences. And I think it also has a really important message that it really hits home in really just profound and big ways. So yeah, the substance, it's a lot. It's hard to watch, but I think all of those horrific images all are there to make a point, and every one of them has a purpose. And I really appreciated that. So it's my number 4, and I'm sorry, Jen.
I have heard such incredible rave reviews about this, and this being number 4 on your top 10 list is quite a high praise for this film. So I think we're gonna have to watch this. I think it's also gonna likely get nominated for the Oscars this year. So it's just a matter of time. And I can't wait to talk about this movie. That's going to make it well worth the watch. While I'm enduring this experience, I'll be like, we're going to get to dissect and celebrate it. It sounds incredible, honestly. The ability to use imagery that is jarring and visceral to get us to a larger message, I am down for. So I will endure my fear and we will do this. But I'm so glad to see that it worked for you, because sometimes there's a lot of rave reviews and you watch and you're like, well, I'm a little overhyped. And it sounds like that was not the case at all with this one, this being your number 4 pick. So I'm so pleased.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's well worth enduring the discomfort, because it's not a comfortable watch at all. So,
but memorable.
But it's worth it.
And for an important message like the unrealistic beauty standards of women, fine if it's paired for something that'll make it memorable,
Yes, it is memorable. You won't forget this film.
I love it. Okay, well, my number 4 pick is Didi. This is...
Yes!
Did you get a chance to watch this film yet?
No, it's on my to-watch list.
Okay.
Yes, I have to move it up, because, I've been wanting to watch it. There have been so many other movies, so I haven't gotten around to it. But
a gajillion. But yeah, this is a indie darling. It's directed by Sean Wang, and it's a coming-of-age story about a Taiwanese boy growing up in California. And it's perfectly during the internet age of the 2010s. And I think I'm a sucker for coming of age movies that are done well, is what I've gathered for myself. And I think this one especially hit home for me because it is such a detailed depiction of the Asian American experience during such a specific period of time. Like, it nailed the internet social dynamics of that time period. And I think there's a lot in this film around the loneliness that this young boy feels, feeling isolated from a lot of his peers, trying to fit in, having to navigate and juggle the cultural dynamics of his home life, but also his social dynamics with his friends at school. And what I love most about this film is the ending. I think that coming-of-age films often follow a specific formula, and I think the ending of this film is a incredibly subtle subversion of a lot of those expectations, and I loved it. I absolutely ate it up. So I am so appreciative that this film got funded, got made, that it's getting all of the rave reviews. Incredibly happy to see that this film was made and depicted such an experience that, I felt like I grew up with this kid and grew up in such similar dynamics. And so just seeing this put to the big screen and brought to life was really meaningful for me. So Didi's got a special place in my heart this year.
Oh, I love that. Yes, it's on my to-watch list. I think it's currently streaming on Peacock. Yeah. So everybody should go watch it, including me, because it's so easily accessible. So let's all watch Didi this weekend and celebrate this indie film that is definitely worth celebrating.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. Top 3. We're getting down to the wire here. What's your number 3 pick?
My number 3 pick is Evil Does Not Exist. And this is a film by the same director who did Drive My Car.
Okay, yep.
So, hello. Of course I had to watch it, and of course I loved it. Not surprising. This film is not for everyone, but it is so quiet and meditative, and also tackles a lot of really important themes about our relationship with one another and our relationship with the environment. And I love the way that this film is constructed, because you're just kind of following these people around as they are like grappling with the premise is that a company wants to build a glamping site in this really remote village, and the residents have to figure out, do they want to allow this in, and kind of going back and forth with the company. And it's just such a fascinating look at how we take care of the earth and what our responsibility is, but then what is our responsibility to our neighbor, and how do we care for one another and treat one another. But it's also just so stunning. The camera is so still. The score is haunting and beautiful all at the same time. And the ending is kind of bonkers and ambiguous. And there's a lot to talk about with that ending because it makes some choices. But yeah, I loved being along for this ride and just spending time with these characters.
I am so pleased this is on your list. I haven't got a chance to watch it yet, but you loved this director's work with Drive My Car. And so I'm so pleased that his next film for you worked just as well, if not more so. It sounds like you love the quiet, meditative, meaningful, ambiguous artsy-fartsy ending. So this sounds like it was a slam dunk for you. I love that.
Yeah. Jen, this movie starts with a 4-minute long tracking shot of just looking up at the sky through like winter, like barren trees.
That is you.
4 minutes.
Yep.
So like that sets you up for everything you need to know about this movie. And I was here for it. I was like, yes, just slow camera movement in the trees. Oh my gosh, I'm here.
Yeah.
Like just, it sets you up for where you want to go. You go on quite a journey. It's going to be a little meditative. It's going to be a little quiet and slow. But it takes you some places.
But it warned you from the beginning, you know?
It does.
Like, you have read the terms and conditions. You've signed the waiver. You've signed up for this. We told you from the beginning, from the 4-minute shot, what you were in for.
It's true.
So, I love that. I love that. Okay, my number 3 pick is Dune Part 2.
Yes!
Big Denis Villeneuve fan over here, and love his interpretation and choice of emphasis on certain concepts and themes in Dune Part 2. Also, there's always just a film that I have on my list every year that is just like the film that captures the magic and fun of the movies. And Dune Part 2 does that for me this year. I love seeing this be such a cinematic event for the masses. It warmed my movie-loving heart so much. And getting to see this in the theaters multiple times was thrilling. There's some sandworm sequences that I just tickled my every single brain cell. And I think thematically, what Denis Villeneuve chooses to do with the POV through Chani and some of the criticism of Paul's rise, some of these concepts of exploring prophecy versus truth is incredibly fascinating and really meaningful. So I love it. It's star-studded, it's spectacle, it's thematically rich, and I just ate it up. I love Dune Part 2 so much. So this had to be somewhere on my list. I knew it was going to be after watching this, and landed at number 3, which is quite high, but I think the love I have for this movie, well deserved at number 3.
It's so good. Like, just every element of this film is doing exactly what it needs to.
Yeah.
And everything is working together in perfect harmony to create such an incredible movie. Like, this is, yes, it's a blockbuster. Everybody went out and saw it, but it is so well done. Like, this is a really incredible film. And this is a great choice for number 3. Like, Dune 2 rocks.
It does. It does. And it's hard to do the part 2 of a part 1 well, you know? And especially because Dune part 1 was such like an exciting entry and exploration of this world that like you really have to up the ante visually, thematically, in the action sequences, and it delivers on all of that and more. And so I think the way that he creates an even stronger film, I would argue, with part 2 than part 1 is really impressive and a difficult thing to do with a world that is arguably familiar to us by this point, and to go back into that world and do something more interesting, give us more to chew on. Villeneuve delivers, man. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm. And Dune was the unadaptable book.
Yeah. Impossible task.
Right? He and the entire team behind Dune and Dune Part 2 have achieved the impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's so incredible. I haven't watched Dune Part 2 since I watched it in the theaters, and now I want to go watch it.
Love it.
I might have to do that after we're done recording.
Honestly,
like,
yeah.
It's so good.
Time, because it's nominated for a bunch of things too, which I'm so pleased
True.
by. Yeah. So good. All right. Our number 2 pick. Sarah, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is The Seed of the Sacred Fig.
Mm-hmm.
And this film takes place in Tehran, and it takes you inside of a protest movement and young people kind of advocating for a change in the regime. But it also takes you inside a family drama as this family is navigating how their lives have changed when the father got a promotion within the regime. And it's just such a fascinating film. And it's simple at first and kind of subversive, and you're just kind of watching people have conversations and just kind of spending time with them. But over the course of the film, the tension and the stakes really, really ratchet up. And the third act is kind of bonkers where it goes. And so I appreciate that this film exists, and kind of reading about some of the things that the director has gone through in even making this film. And I love that movies can be a way to shine light on what's going on and can be more than just entertainment. And I feel like that's what The Seed of the Sacred Fig is, and that the film in and of itself is protest and imagining different ways of being, and it takes us into Tehran, and we can see like a different side of Tehran than we see here in America. So there's just so many things to love about this film, and yeah, it just left me with a ton to think about afterwards. So I highly recommend checking it out.
This is awesome. When filmmaking is able to be more than just entertainment, but being able to marry entertainment with purpose, with ideology, with advocacy, it's incredible and it's powerful. And so I love that it sounds like this film and the backstory around it really is able to do that. That's incredible. Wow. I have not seen this film yet.
It packs quite a punch, and there are some visuals in it that will definitely haunt you afterwards. Yeah, it's an intense one, but I think it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, I love that. I'll have to check this one out. I've not seen this one yet, but I'm very intrigued because it sounds like there's so much both in the film itself and around the film that is incredibly meaningful. Love it. Okay, my number 2 pick is one that I was surprised to be so high on my list, but it's American Fiction. And
yes,
this is a film that I absolutely adored when we first watched it, but I found myself thinking back to this film so frequently. What I love about this film is its ability to marry satire, sharpest of humor with this incredibly moving family drama about vulnerability and the pursuit of making art and the endeavors of making art. It's just all woven together. This is directed by Cord Jefferson, starring Jeffrey Wright, Issa Rae, Sterling K. Brown, Adam Brody. It's about a Black novelist who's frustrated with the profits of the world of Black entertainment and uses a pen name to write a book of his own, and the way that unfolds. I love the way that this film is able to capture so much nuance. I think the style of humor and the way that the humor draws on and creates, this colorful portrait of these very real nuances and dynamics that exist in our society today is incredible. But also it's paired with such a deeply emotional family drama about being vulnerable, opening yourself up to love, and the vulnerability of making art alone and pursuing art. It's all woven in there together. And it's tonally a pretty jarring combination, and it works perfectly for me. And so this film is so special because I think oftentimes films are maybe kind of cornered into one box, and it's either the satirical, humorous comedy, or it's a moving family drama. And I love the full spectrum of color that this film is able to paint with and capture so much of the nuances of real world dynamics in very zany, fun ways, but also really deeply moving ways too. So this film holds a special place in my heart, and I didn't know where it would land. I thought it would be on my list, but it's landed quite high, and I really just am excited to carry this film into the future with me.
Oh, yes. This is such a good film. Like, everybody go watch American Fiction. Yes. It's so funny, and yet is also just unflinching in its message. And it'll get you with humor, and you'll be laughing, and then you'll realize, oh, wait, hold on. I need to actually think about this for a second. It's so important, and it's so well done. Acting is fantastic. The score is also great. This is one that I will listen to on occasion. It has been introduced into the rotation, so it's a hilarious film, but it's also just chock full of meaning.
Yeah.
Such a good choice.
So good. It's so good. All right. Our number one picks of the year. Drumroll, please. Sarah, what is yours?
Yeah, my number one pick is The Zone of Interest.
Wow.
Yeah.
My goodness. Tell me more.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that this is where we've ended up, but this is where we've ended up. I think that this film has really haunted me. I think we watched this in February, and it's one that I will still occasionally think about nearly a year later. And the way that it handles the subject matter, the way that it's shot so matter-of-factly, there's no glitz or gloss in this, but just showing the horrors of Nazi Germany and through the lens of somebody in power. And I still think about, because I didn't know really anything about this film before I watched it. And I remember that one scene early on in the film where they're talking about furnaces, and they're going back and forth about their construction and all of this stuff. And it hit me halfway through that conversation, oh no, these are furnaces that people will go in. Yeah. And the horror that I felt discovering that in that scene while they're talking about it with just such nonchalance really impacted me. And there are moments like that all throughout the film where you're seeing them do something completely normal and oh, this is just a normal day for them. But it's actually utterly horrifying what they're doing. And so I think it's an important film. It's a very well-made film. Its use of sound and silence is kind of bonkers, but absolutely drives home the point. There's just so much about this film that is so well done. And yeah, it really has haunted me. So for sticking with me for so many months, it definitely earned the number one spot on my list.
This is an incredible pick. I mean, and I think what's fascinating too about this film is that Hollywood cinema has explored the themes and the concepts of the Holocaust in depth. And this was such a unique perspective to take to ground ourselves in this family that is in a position of power, and that subversion of depicting this with such almost like cold matter-of-factness of the harsh truth of what is happening was incredibly done. And the execution supporting that larger premise was amazing. There's a sequence in this film with the flower garden where the mother of the family is showing grandma the flower garden, and the whole background of the home and their garden is on the other side of the gate, the concentration camps. And it's just this haunting depiction of this beautiful garden, this joyous moment of showing off these flowers and beauty in the home. And yet, looming in the distance, there's just an utter disregard for the atrocities that are happening. And that's the type of camera work, execution of all of the filmmaking components that came together so beautifully to drive home this point around the harsh truths that are depicted in this film. So what a fresh perspective and take on a concept, a period of history that I think a lot of people have seen a lot of and has been done, and yet it is driven home a point in a way that has not been done before in this way. And so this was incredibly meaningful film. I love that this is your number one pick, and it sounds like it stuck with you very much so for the past several months.
Yep. It's not an easy watch, but man, it's worth it. It's worth watching and actually like sitting down and reflecting on everything that it's depicting and thinking about history and how we tell history and the lessons that we learn from history and all of that. It's just, there's so much to think about with this one film. Yep.
Yeah. So good. So good. And a perfect example of all of the power of film as a medium to be able to tell this story in this way too. Really great. I love it. Great choice. My number one pick for films watched in 2024 is Frances Ha. So we've swung to the other side of the spectrum from the zone of interest.
I'm so pleased.
Yeah. What a gem of a movie. This is directed by Noah Baumbach. The screenplay is written by Greta and Noah, and obviously starring Greta Gerwig in the leading lady role. This is a black and white comedy. It's about growing up, navigating New York City, chasing after your dreams. This film is so charming and so earnest. And I think the character Frances was such an inspiration to me. It's covering so many of the ideas and things that I've been thinking about personally throughout this past year. And so just a film that's been able to hit home for me personally is one that's going to have such a special place in my heart. And this film did that for me. And there's these beautiful depictions of female friendships and how they play such a pivotal role in the way that you grow and evolve and you fight, and yet there's the love that is there is unwavering. And then also the pursuit of art and chasing after your dreams. And there's a realism that I think is really refreshing in this film, while also being paired with whimsy and fantasy. And sometimes film leans so heavily in either of those two directions. You know, we have the fantastical and the escapism, or we have the harsh realities being shown on the big screen. And the film is able to hold space for both. And in fact, the pairing of both together is kind of the earnest charm of this movie. And so I'm just so impressed by this film. It hit home for me personally, as I mentioned, and it's one that I'm going to carry with me. It's one of those films that like has shaped me. And I think there's very few films that I can say that about like very definitively. And for a film that is able to do that, it's gonna be my number one pick of the year. So Frances Ha.
My heart is so full right now. I feel like the Grinch, and my heart has just grown 3 sizes today. I love this movie so much, and I'm so pleased that it's your number one.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. I knew that you loved this movie when we watched it. We reviewed it on Friend of the Pod, Melvin's podcast, Cinematic Doctrine. Go listen to that episode. We had so much fun. I love that this is your number one.
Yes.
It's such a good film. It's so much fun, but it has so much meaning. And this is one I've rewatched it a few times now, and it's great every time.
Yeah.
So,
so good.
I love this movie.
I was like thinking to myself, I'm like, I think this needs to be required viewing for me every year, and also for every other human on planet Earth every year, because we all need the reminders of like, yes, don't let that passion and that dreaming and that hoping for beauty and your vision for what you love to die, you know, like hold on to it. Make the concessions you need. You have to make compromises. That's part of growing up, but there's such a beautiful message of that and a realistic message of that in this movie. And so, it's wonderful. And the playfulness, you know, like too many adults let that die. We must keep that alive.
It's true. I love that I think it's in I think she does it a few times where she's just kind of like dancing through the street, and it's just that long tracking shot of her just like spinning through New York City streets. It's so much fun. Yeah. It's so whimsical and wonderful.
Yeah, it's so great. One of my favorite sequences from this film is the play fighting bit that they continue to revisit in the movie. Like her and Sophie are play fighting throughout at the beginning, and then she makes a new friend who's kind of a grump, and she tries to play fight, and it just doesn't work, and it's absolutely hilarious. But you know, like we need to play. We were made to play, and the allowance of the freedom and unburdened ability for us to be able to do that, even in the smallest of ways, you know, like the realities of what life is hard enough. Okay. We have to make room for a little bit of whimsy in our days. And this movie is such a reminder of that. So good.
This is such a good pick. Yes. Frances Ha.
All right. Well, we've made it from 10 to 1. We do our own little countdowns. I know people do countdowns for New Year's. We do our little countdowns to 1. And what a great group of movies that we have on our list this year. My goodness. A wide spectrum of all genres. And I love that we also have a lot of different languages and cultures represented in our films throughout this year. A great spread on that front. A great spread of genre as well. Really great.
Yeah, good job us. We watched some really good movies in 2024.
Yeah, man.
We killed it.
Yeah. All right, should we give out some honorable mentions? What almost made the list, but not quite, but we want to celebrate. You usually have a long list of honorable mentions.
I have so many.
Rattle them off for us.
So many.
Shall we?
I'm not going to rattle off all of them,
okay,
but I don't know. We'll see how many we get through. But the one that I definitely want to mention is it didn't make my top 10 because I don't know why my brain works this way, but I couldn't figure out where to put a documentary in with a bunch of non-documentary films. It felt like apples and oranges. And so I couldn't figure out how to make it into the top 10. So it's my first honorable mention, and it's called No Other Land. And this is a film that was made by an Israeli and a Palestinian, and it focuses on Israel's occupation of the West Bank. And all of the filming took place prior to October 7th. And it's just such an interesting look at Palestinian lives. And I like to pay attention to like international news. And I remember hearing about some of these things that the film shows, but I never went that deeply into it. And so spending time with these Palestinians as their homes are being destroyed is just absolutely gut-wrenching. And it's also fascinating to see them interacting with this Israeli man who joins them and spends time with them. And there's so much to this documentary film. I think it's a really important watch. It's a really powerful watch. So yeah, No Other Land. It's hard to watch, but it's a really powerful one.
So good and so timely, I think, for this year, especially for a film like this to just be able to open up the conversation for a lot of people that might fall on one side of the narrative versus the other, and to be able to understand and open up the larger picture a little bit more is really important. So that was a great pick. I haven't seen this yet, but I'm fascinated because this is there's a lot to that region and some of the history behind it as well being pivotal to understanding the dynamics.
Yep, it's a good one. It's a difficult watch for sure, but it's an important one.
So good. So good. Okay, what's another one on your honorable mention list?
The Piano Lesson.
Yes.
We raved about this one.
We did.
I absolutely loved this. I'm really appreciating these stage to screen films and these August Wilson adaptations, and the theatricality of this just oozes off of the screen. And I loved it. There's so many good performances. The writing is, of course, awesome because it was August Wilson. And there's so many really interesting themes that are explored throughout this film. So, Piano Lesson, top notch.
I've absolutely been loving the was it 10 of his plays, the Pittsburgh series, the Pittsburgh collection that I think Denzel is committed to being put to the big screen. I'm just so excited for more of them. I think we've gotten 3 or 4 out of the 10 so far, so I'm so excited for the rest to come. It'll be great.
Oh, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So good. So good. Okay. Another one you want to highlight?
Yes. Conclave.
So good.
Just so good.
Oh, great job with the movies, man.
Man, that was just... I didn't expect a movie about selecting the next pope to be as thrilling as it is. But like, holy moly, this is a thriller, but it's with words. And man, just everything in this movie, especially the sound design in this, is just fantastic. And great performances, obviously. And there's a lot of things to think about with this one too. So this has been getting a lot of really good reviews. And so I'm just so pleased that so many people are checking it out, because it's really an excellent film.
It's so good, and I'm just so thrilled to see it receiving all of the engagement and attention and viewership. This gives me such hope for 2025 and the state of movies. You know, it's because it is such a cerebral film that is executed very well cinematically, but also like there's a lot of dialogue, a lot of concepts, and people are eating it up. So give us more, you know, we can do it. We love this. We're putting our eyeballs and dollars towards it. So
yes, we do. Yes, give us more meaty and deep films.
Yeah.
We can handle it.
So good. So good. All right. One more honorable mention you want to shout out?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me pick one from my list.
I know.
Okay.
It's hard.
Yes. I want to shout out Thelma. This is just such a fun film. June Squibb plays a elderly grandma who is scammed, and she goes on an action adventure inspired by the Mission Impossible films to get her money back. And it's so fun to see all of these like action movie staples, but done by I forget how old she is, like 90-year-old woman doing these action set pieces, and the score and the camera angles and everything mimics what you would see in an action film, but it's just an older woman who's doing the action. It's so much fun. And at the same time, it is also this really tender and heartfelt family drama. And to be able to do this like fun, silly action film and this really just beautiful family stuff all in one and have them both be effective, I thought was just really impressive. So I had so much fun with this film. So go watch Thelma. It's just a fun, lighthearted time at the movies.
Love it. Love it. Love it. It's like such a fun premise. Like, what a great time.
It's so good.
Oh, it's so great. So great. Okay, a couple of honorable mentions from me. Monkey Man was on my list. I thought about this movie so many times throughout the year. And that's always indicative of like, it boomerangs back into my brain. And there's just so much that's done that's so fresh. And I think really pushing the horizons of what an action movie can be thematically, which I think is really thrilling. What an impressive directorial debut as well. So Monkey Man, we've raved about it already, but here's another +1 to that. Perfect Days is a Japanese film that we watched this year. Shout out to Michael Burgett from the Screen Nerds podcast who recommended this one to us that we got to review together. This is a film about a man who is kind of in his middle-aged years. He is a public restroom cleaner, and just his appreciation for simple beauty is really inspiring. It's incredibly slow and meditative, yet the small ways that he exhibits kindness to the people around him and some of the family reconciliation that happens in this film is really beautiful as well. So Perfect Days was kind of a gem of a film that kind of ground us in what's most important, and a beautiful depiction of it. And then my number 3 honorable mention is one that I think was just incredibly fascinating for me to see this year. It's Inside Out 2. The depiction of anxiety specifically in this movie I was very impressed by, and seeing the way that it has helped give language to not just children but full-grown adults. Many people in my friend groups and network that have really been able to connect deeply with this film and articulate some of the feelings and experiences that they have with anxiety through this film, and kind of the concepts portrayed in this really creative and fun way, but has kind of helped them understand some of their lived experiences. Was just the power of movies come to life for me. So Inside Out 2 is another film that it's not a perfect movie. I think a lot of people love the first one more, but tackling a difficult concept, doing such a great job with it, and then giving real people such a language and a understanding for kind of difficult, complex things is really impressive to me. So Inside Out 2 is another one I want to give a shout out to.
Those are such good picks, and they're all so different from each other. But they're all so just wonderful and give you loads to think about, in addition to being such an interesting film to watch.
Yep.
Love it.
All right. Well, we've given out lots of flowers today. We've gushed about films. We've praised some of our favorites. It's time to do some roasting, shall we? We are now going to share our least favorite, worst film that we watched in 2024. Sarah, what is your pick for this illustrious category?
Okay, so my pick is The Snowman.
Oh my. Okay. I have not seen this. So what is the premise of this film?
Jen, I need to tell you a lot about this film because it's shocking how bad it is. Okay, before I tell you what it's about, let me set the stage. This film stars Michael Fassbender, Rebecca Ferguson, J.K. Simmons, Val Kilmer, Toby Jones is also in it, James Darcy is in it. Like, there are some big names in this. One of the editors is Thelma Schoonmaker.
Oh my goodness. A Scorsese partner in crime.
And this film is produced by your guy.
No.
Martin Scorsese. It is truly awful. This is the worst movie that I watched in 2024. It's very awful. But the only way that I would recommend watching it is if you do what I did, which I had a few friends over, and it was like midnight, and we just wanted to watch a movie. We thought this might be good. It was not. So we mocked it until like 2 a.m. It was great. The IMDb summary is, Detective Harry Hole investigates the disappearance of a woman whose scarf is found wrapped around an ominous-looking snowman.
Oh my God.
It's a very bad movie.
That sounds so fun.
It's very awful. It has a 23 Metascore.
Wow. It's got 7% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Very, very bad.
Single digits, people. Wow.
Yeah, the director even like
himself with this movie.
Yeah, he spoke out against this film. He just said that it didn't work as a film. So there's all these issues with production. There was issues in editing. Like, it was just, you can tell that this is not how this movie was supposed to go. And they did the best that they could with what they had, when honestly, they probably should have just scrapped it. It is a very, very bad film, which is a shame because there's a lot of good elements to it, a lot of good people behind it. And yet,
star-studded.
It's very bad.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
But made for a great evening with friends.
Oh my gosh.
So
yes.
net a win.
If you want a movie to roast, watch The Snowman. It's great. You got to have the people with you, though, that can roast a movie. You know, those friends. You got to have those around you.
Yeah.
Then put on The Snowman. You'll have a great time. It's very awful. It's hilarious.
Well, thank you to everybody on this creative team for providing the things for us to get upset about. You know, it's very important.
It's awful.
Oh, this is great. Well, we love to celebrate films worthy to be roasted. That's a very special list, you know?
It's true.
Very unique list. Necessary. Okay, my worst film that I watched in 2024 is one that we reviewed with our good friends, Patrick and Nate. It is Civil War by Alex Garland. I appreciate Alex Garland overall as a filmmaker. He really swings for the fences, and this did not work for me. My personal pet peeve is what I like to call melodramatic manipulation, and Civil War is a strong offender in this category. I just think that this film is leaning into pure spectacle. It's leaning into some visceral imagery meant to get a rise out of us without the ideas and point of view to back it, and therefore I'm not down for this anymore. You know, I endured this viewing experience. We got to yell about it for about an hour, maybe a little more on the pod, and that was a very therapeutic experience for me. So yeah, Civil War, my worst film of the year. This did not work for me.
I love how much you hated this film. Our conversation was so funny because you and Pat both like loathed this with your entire beings, like just hated it. And both Nate and I were like, well, it was effective. We didn't like it, but it worked.
And I'm like, no, you get that effective commentary out of here. Not effective.
Yeah, we had very different viewing experiences, but I see where you're coming from, and I really respect it. Solid pick.
I have a special little booklet of the melodramatic manipulation hit list. This is on there, right next to Blonde.
Nice.
Yeah. There's some other ones on there. I'll have to think about it a little bit more, but this is definitely one of them.
I'm looking forward to seeing this notebook come out a little bit more, and you can just air all your grievances about these terrible movies.
Yeah,
I love it.
Great. It's great. We love a bad movie. We love to roast it. We love to talk about it. Why it doesn't work. It's fun. All right. Well, any other thoughts, reflections of our lists, the year 2024 in movies, or things you might be excited about for 2025?
I'm so glad that we have this podcast. Like, there are so many movies on our lists that I might not have watched otherwise, and just having this space where we can talk about films and kind of like grow in our love and appreciation for film, and be stretched to think outside of, you know, what we normally think about, and watch things that might be outside of our preferred genres. Like, I think it's so valuable and important, and I'm so glad that we can come here and do this every week, and I don't know, just experience these different stories and be exposed to things that we might not otherwise experience. And both of our lists are so different and diverse. And I think that that's just a really beautiful thing.
+1 to all of that. Yeah, I think in hearing us talk about the movies that we've chosen for our top 10 list and the whys behind them, one of the big common themes was this really made me think. It really helped open up my mind, my thoughts, my heart to different people groups, their stories, their perspectives, their desires, their struggles, and stuck with us for whatever reason. And when we talk about the way that movies shape us and this podcast being a place for us to explore and flesh out all of that together, it's really meaningful and really making us more open, better people, more empathetic overall, and being able to celebrate stories that are outside of our own is a really beautiful thing. And there's a lot of movies on our list too that were just like, dang, this was a really good time, or like, I needed this at this time of year and in this season of my life. And so that's really beautiful too, just being able to come and experience joy and humor and whimsy and entertainment as well as part of what it means for us to be human. And I feel like our collection of films offer such a holistic perspective of all of that all at once. There's movies that need to stretch us and grow us and push us beyond our current boundaries. And then there's films that we just have a soft spot for because they've brought us such joy. And I think our collective group of 20 plus movies that we've gotten to celebrate today have really represented a lot of that.
And sandworms.
And sandworm. All I want to do
They're so cool.
is ride a sandworm and get dust in my face.
I'm here for
and
this.
And down my throat and coughing up a storm.
Hey,
worth it.
I will take that risk. I will endure that discomfort if I can ride one of those freaking sandworms. They're so cool.
Oh, man. Yeah. On a giant screen.
Yeah.
With some popcorn.
So good.
Yeah. It's all we want. It's all we want.
Yeah. So I think our lists make me so excited for 2025.
Yeah.
Like, we got some good stuff ahead of us. We get a new Bong Joon-ho movie in 2025.
Yep.
That I'm really excited
new PTA.
about. Yep. Yeah.
There's a lot to come.
I'm very excited for what we have in store. The big name films that we're going to see, and also some of these smaller indie films that we might also stumble upon. And so I'm so excited to see what is next and what is going to really captivate us and stick with us in 2025.
That's always the most fun part of this is like we have ended the year with this list, but when 2024 was starting, we had no idea what we were going to get to experience. And so similarly, we have no idea what's ahead of us for 2025, all of the stories and people and characters that we will stumble upon and get to experience and form a new collection of movies by the end of 2025, or a little group of friends. All of these movies feel like little friends that I feel like we just get to collect together and celebrate them and call it all of their special, unique characteristics. And we have no idea who we're going to meet in 2025, which is always a thrill. So we're very excited for the year to come.
Yes. Yep. A great year of movies and also a great year of just conversations about them and talking about them together and with friends as well. So I'm so excited to see what this year has in store.
Me too. And thank you again to everybody who's followed along with us year after year, talking about movies together, getting to hang out. We just so appreciate you supporting this podcast, listening in, getting to hang out with us, commenting, sharing your thoughts with us on the socials. It's such a great time. The most important thing is this community that we've built together and getting to connect with y'all. So thank you for 2024 support. And we can't wait to experience movies in 2025 with you. So thank you for listening to this episode of Movies and Us as we reflected on 2024 and we're getting geared up for 2025. Our name, Movies and Us, sums it up. We're all about movies and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories. So everyone is welcome here and we're so glad you spent time with us today. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune to your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review, letting us know some of your favorite films that you got to experience and watch in 2024. You can connect with us on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at moviesandUsPod, or email us at moviesandUsPod@gmail.com. We will be back next week with a slightly different format for next week's episode. We are going to be doing The Dark Knight watch-along episode. What a way to start out the year. We hope you have an amazing week, and we'll see you all again very soon.